This is the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show, a weekly broadcast that breaks down each Eagles game better than anyone else. The Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show is broadcasting live from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken and is heard on both 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM and is brought to you by SEPTA, Fogo de Chão, the Great American Pub, Independence Blue Cross, and Grand Cafe L'Aquila. We now go live to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. We're at the Great American Pub in Conshohocken celebrating an Eagles 31-17 victory over the Dolphins yesterday in Sunday Night Football. Pushed them up to 6-1. I'm here. My name is Paul Jolovitz. Just call me Jolly. You can call him Domo, Paul Domowitch. Our guest we'll introduce in a second from the Philadelphia Eagles Alumni Association. By the way, his team lost to Penn 27-17 on Saturday. I said I wouldn't mention it, and I'm not going to mention the fact that Penn beat Yale. Domo, but a trade. The Eagles have made a deal, huh?
They have. We knew Howie would be looking for help on the back end, and they've traded for Kevin Byard, the safety slash slot guy from Tennessee Titans.
Yep. Traded a lot for him,
good
too.
Pickup, yeah. Well, they gave away Terrell Edmonds, which, you're not going to miss, and then 5th and 6th round picks in the 2024 draft. So, Byard's a ball hawk, and I think he'll help them. He's done plenty of deals with Tennessee. He has certain places he goes to when he needs people, and this is a good pickup for him.
They all got their go-to guys. Byard's been an All-Pro a couple times and should solidify an Eagles secondary. Obviously, you got to learn the defense. They played pretty well last night. We'll talk about that and many other things, but the Eagles acquired Kevin Byard, 30-year-old, who's never missed a game in 8 seasons. Buddy Ryan line, durability is as important as ability. He certainly comes to work every day.
This is not a kill grass guy. This is, he has not missed a game since his rookie season. Since he came into the league.
All right, we have a guy with us today, a guest who we love having on our show. He's been here numerous times before. We're having him this week to celebrate National Tight Ends Week. As you might have seen, George Kittle promoted and everybody wearing shirts for last night. He was a tight end on the Philadelphia Eagles for 9 of his 11 NFL seasons. Super Bowl 15 from Yale University, lives now in Villanova, Pennsylvania. Mr. John Spagnola, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, Jolly. Hi, everybody. Paul, good to see you again.
Good to see you, John.
Thank you.
Even if you don't know Taylor Swift.
Right, that's fine.
You do know the Eagles, though, John. Back to the Kelly green that you wore last night, beating the Dolphins 31-17. Jalen Hurts with a bum knee a little bit, but a pretty good performance. Summarizing what you saw last night.
Well, first of all, I love seeing the Kelly green. I have to admit it. And I saw numbers of people, and I had flashbacks to teammates. So it was really an interesting experience for me. That was a great comeback win for the Eagles. Now, I think the Dolphins probably were overrated. They're scoring a lot of points, number one in rushing, 34 points a game or 31 points a game or whatever they've been averaging. Not playing the toughest competition in the NFL.
5 wins.
Exactly. So, but I thought that the team played horribly against the Jets, all phases of the game, especially Hurts. And so you have to ask yourself, how are you going to bounce back from this? What lessons are you going to learn? How are you going to apply it the following week? And the team really played well in the second half. That was about as complete a half of football, offensively, defensively, special teams. The turnover, everything they did in the second half was close to perfection. And so I was really pleased with that outcome. They shut down Tyreek Hill in the second half. Slay made a great play. Collinsworth had pointed out earlier in the game, a lot of these receivers are winding up close to one another, and you can wind up covering 2 people, if they're going to be in close proximity, and Slay took advantage of that. It wasn't his guy. So I thought that, and then the way they ran out the clock out, the way they do the brotherly shove thing, and just keep cranking out first downs.
First, they did it from their own 29-yard line.
29-yard line.
That's got to be a tough thing. When you stand on the sidelines and watch the other team call a timeout, we knew it was going to happen then, and go for it and shove it down your throat on 4th and 1. That's got to be depressing for an offense, never mind the defense, the head coach, the Eagles, the brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever you want to call it. But Damo, last night, the Eagles, John mentioned the second half, Defense let up 10 points. They obviously had the pick six as well. Defense played very, very well last night. Kind of neutralized the Miami offensive line, rushing for over 200 yards, 2-3 games this year. Less than 50 last night, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they held them scoreless, like John said, the second half. I believe they did the same thing 2 weeks ago to the Rams. So, I mean, that's a good sign. You look at the numbers. They gave up a lot of, double-digit passes. Gave up some third and longs that kind of scared you, but they weren't letting them in the end zone. That's the only thing that counts.
It is the only thing that counts, and as the Eagles move to 6-1 and playing the Commanders in the return match next week, a lot of fans last night. Obviously, we're here at 4 o'clock because the Phillies tonight at the ballpark, Game 6 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. John, did you, when you played, was it all for one for all? Obviously, Nick Castellanos with his son Liam at the game last night. We've seen every fan of every team or players from every team supporting the Phillies, the Eagles. Did you used to go to games from your brethren when you were playing?
I did. I was never pointed out on FanVision or anything like that, but I would go to games.
There's John!
Who's a huge fan, about the middle of my career was Charles Barkley. He was a rookie, I think in '85 or whatever.
Yep.
He'd go to everything. He's just such a sports nut. But yeah, we would cross-fertilize and we would hang out with one another. When we practiced, we practiced at 1 o'clock, and obviously, as it is now, baseball and football overlaps. And we practiced at the old JFK Stadium that no longer exists. It's where the Wells Fargo Arena is. But we'd come in our locker room around 4 o'clock after a typical Dick Vermeil 3-hour practice. Pete Rose would be fully dressed and ready to go for the 7:35 baseball start. He'd be in our locker room with his uniform on, with his bats. We'd come in, hey, Pete, and Louis Giamona used to always say, hey, Pete, does a man really want to smell like a man? Because he would do the Aqua Velva commercial.
Would he take bets from the Eagles?
No, I didn't do bets. But, that's how ready that guy was. He was dressed and ready to go,
wow.
3.5 hours before the first pitch.
Yeah.
And so we got to know him and, everything else. And we shared the shower and stuff. Our lockers were, adjacent to one another. We shared the same shower. So we did get to know one, and that was a lot of fun. Dr. J with the Sixers, and the whole characters on the flyers and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Well, Domo, your daughter works for the Phillies. I don't know if you point that out. Daughter worked for the Phillies for John Middleton. How excited are you about Red October?
It's been fun. I really getting into it. Sometimes baseball seasons last so long that you kind of become numb to it until about August, September, especially with them. You knew they were going to make the playoffs. They weren't going to beat the Braves. They weren't going to beat the Braves for the division title. But the playoffs the last 2 years have just been so much fun watching them play.
And they go to the World Series. Obviously, they win tonight, Game 7 of the ALCS.
Exactly.
Also tonight, and obviously we'll follow that for us. Football-wise, Eagles coming up. There's no first half now with 17 games, but 6-1, Damo. The key to any football team is a quarterback. Thought Jalen Hurts was pretty good. We'll talk about the turnovers and the stuff a little bit later on. But a concern to some people is the left knee, which he came out for with a brace in the second half. Said he didn't hurt it in the game. Whenever he hurt it in practice in the game, is Jalen Hurts' left knee a concern at all to you?
I didn't hear, Nick wasn't going to say anything today in his press conference anyway, but the fact that he's wearing a brace would be a concern to me. If it's a shoulder, something like that, you're okay, well, it'll heal. But, I hopefully for his sake, it's nothing that's going to require surgery before the season's over. So, but no, I have no idea. I have no clue as to what exactly is wrong with the knee. He wasn't going to talk about it after the game yesterday. I saw his post-game interview, and it's watching him dismiss questions about it is always entertaining because it's like he doesn't hear it.
Yeah, he didn't have any separation speed in the first half. I noticed a couple times, and then they asked him to run quite a bit. They had that one quarterback draw, which really turned out to be a flop of a play with an empty backfield. When he ran in the second half, he did separate, down the middle. He had a pretty good scramble, and then he slid after he made the first down, and it looked like he was running faster. So it's hard for me to discern when the knee injury occurred and what the effect was and that kind of stuff.
John, when you played, were people nobody ever tells the truth. Players, coaches, you almost look at what they say, hear what they say, and think the opposite. were injuries as much a cloak and dagger thing? I mean, we hear upper body and lower body in hockey. You don't want to make it a target for other players. Were injuries as much a CIA thing when you played?
Not exactly.
Yeah, it really wasn't. I mean, it was. I think the NFL will fine you substantially if you don't disclose. So I think you do play a little cat and mouse with it as to the severity of these injuries or whatever else. But I thought we had pretty full disclosure of injuries when I played.
Well, back in his day, I remember covering them.
It wasn't that far back.
Otho Davis. There's the leather helmet that just been taken out.
Yeah.
But Otho Davis was the trainer, and I mean the training room was not off limits to the media. I mean, you could go in there and talk to Otho, and John's on the table. They're getting his knee worked on.
Try
or something.
that now.
Yeah. Now it's like exactly the upper body, lower body thing. So. But, the one play that I saw that I thought maybe he might have heard it, he was running out of bounds once early, and a guy tried to tackle him from behind, and just as he was going out of bounds, and I thought maybe he kind of nicked it then. I don't know. There's no way to know.
Is what it is. Obviously, we'll see during the week, but he should play in the return match against Washington, the Commanders. We'll get to that later on. Obviously, the Eagles beat the Commanders 34-31 in overtime. The Commanders beat them last year when they were 8-0. John, 6-1 for the second consecutive season. Obviously, you want to be as good as you can. What are they? I mean, 7 games in, are we seeing an Eagle team at full throttle? Where do they need help? How much room for improvement do they have? Obviously, you always want to improve no matter what you're doing. Without giving a 9-hour answer, because it's pretty much a 9-hour question, where are the Eagles right now, and where do you think they would be?
I think the nucleus of the club, the epicenter of this team, believe it or not, is the right tackle. I mean, the numbers of wins and losses, I think they have like a 2-to-1 ratio of wins to losses when he plays, and it's something like a 1-to-2 ratio of wins to losses when he doesn't play.
Gave up a sack, believe it or not, yesterday.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, really, he has such an impact in that running game. I think Hurts is so comfortable when he's at right tackle because he really can sort of just block out the right side of the field, focus on his reads on the left side, scramble out to the right. The whole thing, the Eagles are following the Phillies program, follow the Eagles program, following the Phillies program, which is you want to peak at the end of the season.
Sure.
So this is all an exercise of getting all the pieces together and the schemes together to peak in December as you go into the playoffs, much like the Phillies peak in September as they go into the playoffs. The Atlantic can win as many divisions as they want. Good luck to you. You get knocked out in the playoffs because the Phillies are peaking at that time. Every player is playing at a high level. That's what they did last year. Now, they had the extra bonus, the Eagles, of no injuries. They had the starting lineup that they had since opening day. That doesn't happen very often in the NFL. But I think this team is, trending to be a tad better than they were last year. And, of course, they were a hell of a good team last year.
Got some rookies like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, some help on the offensive side of the ball. DeAndre Swift's playing great. The offensive line, again, the tush push, the brotherly shove, as you may call it. It's got to be depressing for the other team. We'll talk about all that. And John Spagnola had something interesting to say about National Tight Ends Day, actually about the position of tight end in the NFL, where he started for the Eagles in Super Bowl 15. We'll talk about that and much more. This is the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show right here on WBCB and 107.3 FM, also streaming on Facebook Live. We're happy to be at the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. We are here every week, and we'll be back with the second segment of this wonderful program right after this. Stay with us.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
Yeah.
All righty, back here at the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. Got a nice crowd on hand. Give yourselves a nice hand, everybody. We're here every week, and thank you for coming. Domo and I will lead the charge along the way. We're here with John Spagnola, former Eagle tight end. Johnny, yesterday, National Tight Ends Day. Guys on pregame shirts or pregame shows wearing shirts and the like. We heard about Dallas, who obviously scored for the Eagles, and around the NFL, Travis Kelce caught 12. He's got a girlfriend too, I think, that came to see him play. I can't remember her name. But you said something interesting about tight ends. We were talking before the show, such as Travis Kelce, such as Shannon Sharpe, and many others. How has the position evolved over the years, and do you like it?
Well, I absolutely love the way the position's evolved. You can't get hit anymore going across the middle. They can't hit you in the head. All this other stuff. It's like, are you kidding me? You can go across the middle with impunity now.
You would have 200 catches a year.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah. And they can't hold you. It's beautiful. I mean, what I'm seeing now, and I'm extremely jealous. I think Travis Kelce and a lot of the receivers like Kellen Winslow, Tony Gonzalez, you can go down the list. These guys create mismatch nightmares for the defense. You guard them with a linebacker, you guard them with a safety. They're taller than safeties anyway. They can box you out and make plays. I sort of harken back to my idol as a kid growing up was Tom Mackey. Number 88. John Mackey. I'm sorry, who played for the Baltimore Colts. I mean, this was a guy who could catch the ball, run like a fullback in the open field. Dave Casper comes to mind, Russ Francis, Mike Ditka, and a contemporary of mine was Mark Bavaro, who could block and collapse the whole defensive line to get the running back outside. So those are guys who really mixed it up a lot more, blocking. And of course, the run-pass ratio was 2-to-1. That's the opposite now. So it's a wonderful position. It's become, to me, the key position now, right up there with running backs, maybe ahead of running backs and just below wide receivers in terms of where the pecking order is in importance in the offensive team.
Domo, I know you are. Not a lot of people know this. Paul Domowitch does a lot of things. Works for the 33rdteam.com. You also are in charge of the calendar. You decide what day is National Secretary's Day, National Tight Ends Day, National Nurses Week. How do you plan these days, and any other ones coming up that you need to talk about?
It's not easy, John, Paul, but we've got National Old Sports Writers Day coming up in a few weeks, so I'm excited about that one.
Well, old sports writers, Tomo, don't really talk a lot about the brotherly shove or the tush push. I know you wanted to talk about it and its significance to the Eagles. Never mind the angst it has to cause the other team. It's a real weapon, huh?
You saw that yesterday. They were 4 for 4 with it. It kept alive 2 drives that ended in touchdowns, and it was he scores on a tush push for a touchdown. So it's the next closest thing to automatic with them. I believe I had the numbers somewhere here. 18 for 19 on tush pushes this year.
You would never, ever go for it on your own 29-yard line in the fourth quarter, up by 7 points on a 4th and 1, because that distance between the quarterback exchange and then the turn to the back and the penetration, all this is eliminated in the tush push, whatever you want to call it. It's a short exchange. There's momentum forward. And you can see defenses just haven't figured out a way to root out that offensive line. And then you don't have some pencil neck quarterback trying to get over.
You got a
thing,
600-pound
right? You got a guy
deadlifter.
who's got a leg drive and
600.
strength, and he is very adept at finding where's the gap. First of all, by alignment, okay, they're all in there, they're plugging the gaps. But he has a good feel for where am I going, and then he's got the guys behind him.
Well, stop right there for a second.
I don't know how you stop it.
Let me ask each one of you guys, John first and Paul.
There's only two of us here.
That's true. There are only two. There's plenty in the audience.
We're hiding some guys in the fireplace.
Each one.
If I said to you there's one guy, obviously Jalen has the ball, squats 600 pounds, there's one guy who's the key to that play working more than any other, although it's obviously a conglomeration of a lot of weight. Who's the main key, John?
Kelsey. Yeah, I mean, I just think he's down. He's the root hog or whatever. I don't want to disparage him, but he's down there pretty low with the.
Yeah, you can't see him. So
you can't see.
He's the minor.
He's low. He's low to begin with, and he gets lower. And as long as he doesn't get pushed back, as long as those three guys in the middle don't get pushed back, which they can't by virtue of the fact they're diving down, and then there's this V over top of them. It just works. It's like, somebody went in the physics lab and figured this out and came up with it because it's impressive.
All right, Damo, who's the biggest key? But more importantly to that, we'll extend your answer a little bit. Why do other teams have such trouble with this? They just can't do it. The Giants get people hurt. The Raiders get people hurt. Other teams don't succeed. The Eagles don't have any magic, so what are they doing that's so different than everybody else?
I think some teams are just embarrassed to try it now because it's so successful for the Eagles, and they don't want to be less successful, or they might not have a quarterback. I mean, Jalen is unique, and like John said, not everybody has a center that understands leverage like Kelsey. And they're taking it to the next level now. I mean, I watched one of those yesterday. They moved Lane Johnson over to the left side. And then after the snap, he comes in behind instead of just diving in underneath. He comes behind and is one of the pushers. I mean, it's only a matter of time before we're going to see them pitch out. I mean, they get everybody you saw it yesterday. There were people diving over the top.
I think the best thing a defense could do is probably just try to jump the count.
Yeah.
But John, if they do that, I mean,
that's half the distance. So it's fourth and a half, and now it's fourth and a quarter. Like if you jump the count and you get some penetration in advance of that, but that's fool's gold there too.
10 penalties yesterday against 10 penalties, none on the Eagles.
I know. That's the exact opposite. When you used to play Miami in the olden days, my days, the black and white days and stuff. Don Shula was the head of the competition committee, and they always say, the Dolphins are the least penalized team in the NFL. Well, because Shula decides who the officials are, and we still scratch our heads like, how could they not have one flag thrown against them today? I was thinking about that last night. That I'm certain, coach could walk off the field. How did the Eagles play completely flawless? Like, they didn't have one penalty. I mean, that's
first time since 2008.
Is that right? Okay.
And when you mentioned the reasons they won yesterday, and there were quite a few of them offensively and defensively, I mean, you got to put in there that the officials and they did this for both teams. They let them play, and that really benefited the Eagles secondary. I mean, you saw the one call. Could have been a face mask pass interference that would have been a big play.
They missed. I mean, I don't think that was a non-call.
No. But even the interception on Slay, you've got Zach Cunningham coming. He had gotten beat, and he's already got his hands on the running back as Slay's coming across to intercept the ball. So, I mean, that could have been called. It wasn't. I don't think it should have been because it was kind of, it wasn't a.
I always think the ref at that point, and they don't always do this, does the penalty affect the play?
Yeah.
Like you're exactly on that play. You could call interference, but at the end of the day, the running back didn't have a play on the ball, right? Slay had the play on the ball, and nobody else, other than, and nothing that happened there would have changed the outcome of that play.
No, it was a consistently called game, and that's all you can ask when you're dealing with officials.
Johnny, Damo mentioned this, but I'll ask you. You're a smart guy. Obviously, you study how things are done. How soon is it going to be before, I don't know what the situation is, obviously fourth and a short yard or something, but before the Eagles take the ball, Jalen gives it a fake, drops back, and throws a 75-yarder to a wide-open A.J. Brown or something like that, are they going to put some variety in the tush push? Are they saving that for a big moment in a late season game? What do you think's happening with that?
I think Domo tipped it off. You know, Lane Johnson's going to the left tackle. Now he's going to report as the left offensive end. And the key will be he'll be unwrapping his hand pads, you know, as the snap is going. I don't know. I think there are variations they've probably played around with, you know, a fake and then a pitch, a pop pass, you name it. There's probably a few things they could do off of that, but then if your goal is to get that 1 yard, I mean, it's a question of where and when you dial it up. That's all.
What's amazing now is, like yesterday, they ran it 4 times. The only one that didn't, they gained 2 yards on 3 of them. The only one they didn't was the touchdown from the 1 yard line when you you can only get 1 yard. And what they do is you look at the personnel groupings they use. Sometimes they use 11 personnel, which is 3 wide receivers. You know, it has no effect. I mean, it works. They work with 12 personnel. So I mean, that's why I think you could do something off of it. You got 3 wide receivers out there. You know, suddenly you put one in motion or whatever, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
All right, you talk about receivers in motion. We talked about National Tight Ends Day. The 2 intersect in the guy named Dallas Goedert, who plays with the Eagles, obviously, took over from Zach Ertz, who was a wonderful player, a great pass receiver, but seemingly that wide receiver hybrid that John was talking about, nobody is ever going to put him in the blocking Hall of Fame. Dallas Goedert's a lot more of the traditional type tight end. What do you see in Dallas Goedert, John?
I see players just continue to develop year in and year out, which I like to see. Just I believe last year his stats were uncanny in terms of targets and catches. I think he led the league in terms of percentage of catches. Given
and a very good blocker, too.
Very good blocker, big guy. You know, his touchdown last night, it speaks to, you know, kind of being that quasi-wide receiver type. I mean, they ran
came on a screen.
A little tight end type screen, a little X screen, and Malaya was outside there, and you had and he ran really well off the blocks in the open field. It's funny, he's a big guy. He doesn't seem to be a long strider, though. He takes kind of small steps, which allows him to be really balanced. He has a really good feel when he catches the ball as to where he's going to get hit and how he can slip around and move or whatever else. I think he's a complete tight end, and he's patient. I mean, there were a couple, I guess, you know, the opener, the second game, he really didn't get the ball. Then he got the ball a lot. Now he's not getting the ball. Now he's sort of in the offense. He's not a guy that, you know, kind of complains about not getting the ball. He just sort of plays and plays well, and when is called upon, delivers. I really admire him. I think.
All right, Tomo, schematically, you talk a lot during games. I'm going to ask you about a tweet that you had last night, but
you making this up?
Are you an influencer?
There's a real tweet.
Are you an influencer out there?
He is an influencer.
Are you one of those guys?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, my wife reads it, I think.
As a defensive coordinator, though, how hard is it, and what do you do as a D coordinator to cover tight end Travis Kelce, tight end whoever, that you wouldn't have to do if they were lined up on the outside? Where is that lining up in the slot and inside the slot? How does that change how a D coordinator reacts to pretty much every tight end?
Well, I mean, the big difference, if you've got a tight end like him, you can run or pass out of it. You know, typically when you play 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 3 wide receivers, teams go to their nickel. You know, two linebackers. They take out a linebacker and put in an extra DB, which makes them lighter and makes them easier to run on. And you know, when you've got a guy like Goedert who can block, you know, I mean, it helps with that whole RPO game. And but he's a tough guy to cover because, you know, tight ends his size, most of them are his size, or you know, you can't. They're too. They're too big to cover with a smaller guy. You go with a linebacker, he can beat him down the field. So that's the matchup problem you have. You know, the funny thing about Goedert, they had no clue he could block. And we were talking before the show about how very few tight ends really are very good blockers. I mean, if they can get in people's way, that's all you want from them. But he comes out of South Dakota State. A spread offense. I mean, they knew he could catch the ball. They had no idea. I mean, they just fell. I mean, they'll gladly tell you they just fell into the fact that he could also help them in the run game as an inline blocker.
And John Mackey, John Spagnola's favorite tight end, had a 75-yard touchdown catch. Remember, the longest in Super Bowl history? May still be the longest in Super Bowl history, I think. and Super Bowl 4. Tight ends can do it all. One quick question for John before we go to break.
Did you come up with that stat on your own?
Yes, I watched the game.
That's impressive. That really wasn't that Super Bowl 3?
No, Super Bowl 3 was the Jets and the Colts.
Right. Was that John Mackey or not?
No, that wasn't the game. John Mackey was Super Bowl 5. The game they played
Dallas.
Dallas, yeah. 16-13, Jim O'Brien field goal with 5 seconds left. Last straight-toed kicker to play in the Super Bowl, by the way.
Not that I doubt you, Joel.
No.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep.
The last.
Wow.
Yep. Damo tweeted out a stat last night. John, I know Damo knows
Is this on the X, formerly known as Twitter? I love the way.
X.
Have you ever seen it where it says just X?
Yeah,
Without
Elon Musk.
parenthetically, formerly known as Twitter. Every article I read is like X,
Yep.
formerly known as Twitter. Like, at what point does X just simply X?
I think 6 months
It'll
is
take a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What team, John,
another
has
6
allowed?
I'm sorry. I digress. I'm sorry.
Another 6 months.
What team's allowed more 15-yard pass plays than any other team in the NFL this year?
This year?
Yep.
Oh God, I have no idea, but I'm just gonna guess the Giants.
Damo?
Eagles.
Get out, really?
Yeah, like 45. They gave up 7 yesterday.
Wow.
They don't give. I mean, well, they gave up a few big ones yesterday, but yeah, I mean, the middle of the field's been soft for them all season. I mean, you're watching those games.
They've had a
But
lot of
they-
different combinations in the
Yeah,
middle of the field
yeah.
too, right?
Hopefully Mr. Byard will help change that.
I mean, but in defense of the Dolphins, and I didn't. I mean, I thought that game was going to go very differently than it did. I thought the Eagles were probably going to lose, but the Dolphins were missing. You could talk about the Eagles' injuries. Dolphins were missing both of their starting corners. I think 3 of their starting offensive linemen, which was big. But by the same token, Eagles were are banged up too. So.
It's 31-17, no matter how you slice it. The Commanders coming up next week. When we come back, we're going to talk about the best guy to play wide receiver last night for the Philadelphia Eagles. Was it A.J. Brown? Nope. Was it Devontae Smith? Nope. Who then was it, Jolly? We'll tell you when we come back and see if he's got any role or any value to this team going forward. Independence Blue Cross, Monday Night Kickoff from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken rolls on after this. Stay with us.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
Again, it was cheaper to buy it as a lot than it was to buy 3.
Let's not let this get around.
Alrighty, everybody, back on the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken, where we are every week. Next week, Juan Hebron joins the show. In 2 weeks, Derek Gunn. We have a great guest every week. We have John Spagnola this week. And the Eagles have some wide receivers, some tight ends, and new one this week. My wife Amy talked yesterday. We were watching the game. She said Julio Jones is definitely the best wide receiver ever from Alabama. Now he's with the Eagles after a long career, 13,000 plus yards. Johnny, got anything left?
I don't think so. I mean, it was a pickup that couldn't hurt because, I mean, it didn't cost much, but, his last 3 years have really been kind of under the radar. He didn't catch a red zone pass with either Tennessee or Tampa Bay.
That's
the
the area I
last
thought
few
maybe he could help. Do you think he
Yeah.
can help there at all?
No, I don't think he can.
What is it about the red zone guys? I mean, Brian Johnson last night a little more successful than he'd been recently. John, what's the key to red zone offense? A lot of people said they got to be more imaginative, do this, do that. They struggled in the first half again.
You know, red zone offense, when I was with Sid Gilman, it was back then it was post corners. You know, now it's turned into a lot of rubs and a lot of sort of quick outs, fades. You know, then you have the back door or back shoulder fade route. You just have a lot of combinations. It's a tight area in which to throw the ball. We all know that. You're dealing with 10 yards, 20 yards, or whatever. So everything happens quickly. The reads have to be quick and decisive. So it's an area of the field where certain players can excel, and I think others don't excel. But you have to have a really good scheme. And when I hear Julio Jones, I always think of Paul Simon's song, you know, me and Julio down by the schoolyard. I can't not have that jingle go through my head every time that I, you know, hear his name. So anyway, I hope he can contribute. But I think, you know, I think his obviously his great days.
Yeah, I mean, he may have a big catch in a game somewhere along the line, but you know, I mean, there's just. You know,
seems like a no-risk signing,
Nick,
right?
Nick claimed he's got, you know, a lot of pop and still left in his legs. Okay, I don't see it. Didn't see it. But
you know, the fans. He had a 3-yard catch last night. The fans got up and they know.
Yeah.
You know, they knew he's a new guy and they welcomed the Philly.
Exactly.
It's great. It's really great.
Great.
You gotta love the Philly fans.
You do.
It's crazy, aren't they?
Spags, who do you think Nick Saban was rooting for last night? His two Alabama quarterbacks, two of many. Mac Jones already won. Tua against Jalen, both who did Alabama proud.
They did. I mean, they almost had identical stats except for touchdowns.
Yeah.
You know, I think 2-1 versus 0 and 0-1. They both had one interception. They were both like 21 for 32 or 22 for 32 or whatever it was. I mean, they played well. Both of them, I think, Saban enjoyed the evening. And they had a nice little agree. I don't think they met before the game.
No, Jalen doesn't talk to the other guy before the game.
Yeah, so after the game, I thought that was like a nice little, you know, conversation and stuff to say.
I think Nick has Nick Saban has a lot of a special place for Jalen in that after he lost the starting job, he could have left
at halftime of the national championship game. By the way,
he was despondent. He was, he went to his offensive coordinator and said, "What am I going to do?" And he was near tears. And he had a talk with Nick, and Nick said, "Hey, listen, you can leave, or I think you could stay here and get better as a passer, being a backup. Because you'll get a chance to work on what you don't do well right now." And that's exactly what he did. I mean, he used that time to become a better passer, and we all know where his career went from there.
Johnny, who was the Jalen Hurts of the Eagles when you were there? Or it could be somebody on another team, just a young kid who you knew was going to be, you didn't know how good they would be, but you knew they would be the best that they can be because they applied themselves, they were mature, everything that goes into a great player. You know Jalen Hurts is going to hit his ceiling, whatever that is. A lot of people complain about this year's version isn't what last year's is. I think it's just a matter of time. Who was the worker bee when you played?
I'm not going to duck your question, but I am going to say when Dick Vermeil took over the 76 Eagles, there were no draft choices in the pipeline. And there's that famous video where he's in his shorts at training camp and he says, we don't have any talent coming in. So I'm going to make each one of you better. I got to make each one of you a better football player tomorrow than where you are today. And I think he did that, and that team. And I didn't join until '79, so a lot of that hard work was done in the 3 preceding seasons. But that team, when I got there, those guys knew how to work. They knew how to work hard. They knew how to work smart. They knew how to outwork an opponent. I would put, a friend who passed away, Frank LeMaster, in that category, John Bunting in that category. There were a lot of people who just played above their levels and just outworked other people. So that's why I think I and my contemporaries, really gravitate toward Hurts as a player, as a person, because of the way he represents himself and how he channels. Everybody needs their fuel, and then I think he's a lot of fuel, and he just channeled it all in the right direction.
A guy from your era that a lot of people liken Jalen to, obviously, is Randall.
No.
And well, let me get to that.
Go ahead, you're right.
And they're nothing alike. Because when Jalen's career is over, he will have worked harder than anybody else on the planet, and will have taken he'll take as much. His ability will carry him as far as it can. Randall, it was so frustrating watching him because he was so talented, and he could have been a Hall of Fame player, and he thought he could get by with what he knew and what his talents were, and the let me be me whole thing.
How much that had to do with Doug Scoville not being there?
Nothing. I guess, but it was, a lot of it was just, you've heard the stories of him leaving his playbook when he went left. I don't mean to disparage Randall, because I love the guy to death. He's a great guy now. He was a great guy then. He just never took his talent and took it to the next level. Jalen is exactly the opposite of that. He doesn't have Randall's talent.
Yeah.
But there's none of his talent that he's going to waste.
And I think Jalen's got to work on it. Like that pass interception last night. He's got to look at Drew Brees films, and see how he got rid of the ball. Drew Brees is a small guy, but he always found the way to get rid of the ball.
Yeah.
He didn't have balls batted down. That guy came right in his face last night. It's easy for me to say I'm sitting back eating popcorn in my lounge chair, but you've got to say, I got to get the ball to this guy. Do I fake a little bit? Do I get a different angle? Do I go sidearm? Those are the kinds of things he does. And Paul, back to your point, I agree with you. Randall, it was a curse to be as good of an athlete as he was, because when things got confusing, he could run around and as Buddy would say, just run around and make a big play, which is what he did most of the time until he was playing a really buttoned-up defense, and that happened in the playoffs, and they couldn't break through and win a playoff game.
It's like Willie Mays.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They used to ask Willie Mays how you approach your at-bats. He goes, I see it, I hit it. When you can do that, then somebody's throwing 110 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Johnny, you played on a team. We had Coach Vermeil last week, who was great. Obviously, you played for him. Damo pointed out that you guys were in the Super Bowl, obviously lost to the Raiders in Super Bowl 15, and then started 6-0 the next year, and it kind of went south a little bit. Parallel situation here. Eagles lost the Super Bowl, are 6-1. What's the biggest hurdle a team has? Obviously, you played longer, more tired theoretically. We've heard it's been forever since a team lost the Super Bowl, came back and won one. What's the biggest hurdle you have to face? And then at the beginning of the year and even now, what's the hardest part about being the hunted?
Yeah, I think you have the bullseye on your back because you've been in the Super Bowl, so everybody matches their program up against you and says, we can beat these guys, we can play with anybody. So you have everybody's attention. And there's the physicality of it. You're playing 6 weeks longer, your off-season's shorter, and that takes a toll physically. It really does. I was exhausted. I played in the Ivy League. Obviously, we had 9 games. Second year of my career, I'm playing 23 games. It was ridiculous. I remember just being spent, and it took. We don't have the training techniques, the diet, and all the supplements and stuff they use today. But I just needed like 4 or 5 weeks away from everything just to have my body rest and heal, and then get back into working out. And I think that's a big part of it. I think it's just such a long season and a grind. It's really hard to just crank it back up and win. That's why when you get there, you have to try it. You have to win.
Yeah.
You really do.
Some have mentioned, talking to coaches and players about it, another thing is that you just, after you've gotten all the way, the next year, you just want to snap your fingers and have the playoffs start rather than have to go through this whole process of 16, 17 games. And that's something, a hurdle that sometimes teams, that they just are. I guess that's what would be called the Super Bowl hangover. That you just aren't inspired until until you're playing in the playoffs.
By the way, it's Coach Vermeil's birthday next Monday, so let's
87 years old.
87.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he the youngest 87-year-old you've ever met, John?
He's up there.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, don't let the old man in. That's what he
There
tells me. He just works out all the time, and he's got a schedule that would make a 25-year-old be exhausted.
He was telling us his secrets last, was it 2 weeks ago?
Last week.
Last week, that's right.
He's the highest compliment me personally can pay any human being is you're great at what you do, but you're a better human being. That would certainly fit Coach Vermeil, wouldn't it, Johnny?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yep. All right, we'll find out when we come back with John and Paul. Think about a simple question. After 7 weeks, 8 weeks, who's the best team in the NFL right now? Eagles had their bye in a couple weeks. We'll talk about the road to the bye, the road afterwards, and find out who is the best in the NFL. Doesn't matter now. It matters in February. But the question will be shot out anyway on the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff. Make sure you watch, you listen, you come to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. We can have a great show and a great meal. The food is terrific here. Chef Guy is the absolute best. We're back right after this. Stay with us. Final segment.
Since 1991, the Great American Pub in Conshohocken has been offering an authentic and memorable experience for guests looking to dine in or enjoy the bar and nightlife. Located at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken, the Great American Pub has all your craft beer selections and some of the best food options anywhere. While you're there trying their buffalo chicken spring rolls or Maryland crab cakes, enjoy your favorite sporting events on their numerous televisions surrounding the bar. Visit them at 123 Fayette Street in Conshohocken or learn more online at thegreatamericanpub.com.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Great American Pub in Conshohocken for the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff Show. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Domowitch and Paul Jolovitz.
All right, back here. Final segment from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. Paul Jolovitz, Paul Domowitch, our guest John Spagnola signing things for some great fans. Johnny, what's the strangest thing you've ever been asked to sign by anybody, anywhere? Any body parts?
No, thank God I stayed away from body parts. That's a hard one. I think maybe sign, the back of a shirt, the back of somebody's bald head, things like that. But nothing. Nothing
X-rated?
Yeah, nothing X-rated or R-rated or anything like that.
All right, Domo, John, you guys both have expertise in this area. After 7 weeks, we got a few 6-1 teams. Couple of 5-2, bunch of injuries, schedules, a lot of things differentiate. Teams haven't had their bye. They have had their bye. Eagles play the Commanders and the Cowboys, then their bye, then a murderer's row afterwards. Right now, Damo, who's the best team in the NFL and why?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I thought San Francisco or in my rankings for the 33rd team, I had the Eagles number one until they lost last week, moved the Chiefs up ahead. I think San Francisco is the team that the Eagles have to worry about. I'm guessing those two are. If you ask me right now who's going to be in the NFC Championship game, I think it would be those two.
And they play the Chiefs and they play the Niners.
Yeah, so. But it's all going to come down to health. Who's healthy when they play each other when it matters. These games when they play each other in November will be interesting, but a lot's going to depend on who's healthy at that time.
All right, the next question from Mr. Spagnola is interesting because John Spagnola may answer a question with a team that's coached defensively by Steve Spagnuolo, who used to be with the Eagles. Johnny, if the Chiefs aren't, who is the best team in the NFL and why right now?
It's really hard to, I don't mean to duck the question. I like the Eagles because I like the depth and I like the team and the possibilities of where this team will be at the end of the year. The Niners might be playing the best football right now. The Chiefs have the Mahomes factor. Okay, so when the Eagles were up last year in the Super Bowl, something like a 78 or 68% probability, by the stats, that they were going to win, that the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl. And with the computers and everything else, don't realize is that Mahomes is the best player perhaps ever to play that position. And so, by virtue of that, they're never really out of any game at any given time. So, that's sort of the variable that you can't really account for. But I think the Eagles play the Chiefs, they play the Niners, they play the Bills, and I think they're going to wind up playing one of those teams, when it comes down to the stretch.
Well, it could be that way, and we saw something last night that kind of leaned, not necessarily in that direction, but the post game from Nick Sirianni was interesting, Damo, because he was very animated. He did something coaches very rarely do, and it was fun to see for any Eagle fan. What was that?
At the press conference or on the sideline?
The presser. We at least looked into the camera, said if everybody could do the tush push.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was, if everybody could do it, they would do it. He was very, excuse me.
You get all choked up over this.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
I mean, his personality yesterday was interesting. On the sidelines, he's doing the, I don't know if it probably turned some people off.
I commented on that. I was like, dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But he was enjoying himself. But
who's the most animated
it wasn't
coach
Nick Saban-ish,
It goes, everything goes in full circles here. You got to be careful.
Yeah.
That's all.
Who's your most, obviously you played for Carm Koza at Yale. Not that anybody here knows who Carm Koza is, but he coached forever.
As long as you and I do, that's all that matters.
There we are. Dick Vermeil in the NFL. You played for a couple other teams along the way. Who's
Chuck Knox.
Who?
Yeah, Chuck Knox, Ground Knox.
Chuck Knox, not exactly animated. Who was the most animated coach you ever played for? Was it Coach Vermeil?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, in terms of a guy who would personalize things, I can't repeat the kind of things he would say, but I could give you the circumstances under which he would say something.
He said to us last week, he said, gosh, we've won the football game. Isn't that tremendous? Yeah. Was that kind of along the lines of that?
That was along the lines. I remember he would tell us, like, we have an 87% chance of getting cover 2 if you line up in red formation on the plus 45-yard line, and it's 2nd and 7 and 10. And then we're going to call a fake in the middle and throw, the post.
Pre-analytics, he would come up with this?
He would come up with that, and then all of a sudden we would get in that situation in the game, and they wouldn't go cover 2, and he'd be on the sidelines screaming at the defense, how dare you break your tendency? Stuff like that. It was hilarious. It really was. He was clearly the most animated, tightly wound. That's why he wound up, leaving the game.
We were talking earlier about the 81 season when you guys started 6-0 after the Super Bowl appearance.
Yeah.
Dick has openly talked about, he was dealing with his demons then, as far as overworking himself to death. And he talked a lot about one of his problems that year was nothing made him happy. He would find fault in every, even wins. Did you notice that?
Yeah, we did.
Year?
And I remember there was a comment after a game. I think we beat the Saints to go 5-0 or something like that. And Joe Pisarcik said something along the lines of, he's taking the fun out of winning. And he addressed the team the next day, and he ripped how dare you, say this or that. But he honestly, he was. He was sort of trying to drive toward perfection, being the ultimate hardworking perfectionist. He sort of lost perspective, of things. And, look, all this is well documented. The great thing is that he figured it out, and he was able to be a great champion,
So 2 weeks from now, the Eagles play the Cowboys, and they have a bye week. In your day, that didn't happen that way. 17 weeks, 1 bye week. We've had 1 year with 2 bye weeks. You talked about playing after the season to the Super Bowl and playing the long year, the limited off season. How big an advantage to everybody is the bye week now, and what can it do for you? Obviously, teams have it at different times, but if you would play with a bye week, how would it have changed your career in any way?
Well, I think it would have added, 17-game season would have added 1 more paycheck, so that would have been nice.
Yeah.
I'd be living a little bit larger than I am now, maybe.
117.
Right. Again, it goes back to my earlier comment just about healing and injuries and, that kind of thing. When I played, you felt better on a Wednesday if you played against the Rams in the Coliseum. or the Raiders in the Coliseum back then, or you played at Anaheim against the Rams, even RFK Stadium, if a grass game made your body feel 50% better than it would have otherwise after a turf game. So just getting that kind of rest is really important, and that's I think when it comes during the season is important for these teams. Mid-season, late season, that kind of thing can really be replenitive. So I think that's probably the most important thing about the bye.
The owners want an 18th game. A lot of people think
Goodell
it's inevitable.
Does. Yeah. He wants the Super Bowl to be on President's Weekend.
3 more years for Roger.
He's told me that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, he's told me that face to face. Like, that's his goal. They're almost there. You know what I mean?
Do you think that's going to happen?
I do. I think it's going to be his final act, maybe, and it'll be 2 buys. It'll be an 18-game season. It'll start a week after Labor Day. It'll go right in, and then it's a big holiday. It's a 3-day weekend. The Super Bowl. That's what he wants.
You guys glad Roger got 3 more years at $50 million a year? Signed through.
I like Roger. I really do. I admire him. Look, he's a pincushion. Every commissioner is. It's there's 10,000 reporters out there looking to get a story on the NFL and bring them down somehow. Yeah. But I think there's times when he's taken a stand on certain things and he didn't have to. And I'm talking about certain players, who got in trouble or whatever else. And I admired that for him. So he's okay in my book. And he's added another 0 to every owner's net worth.
Tom, what are your thoughts on Roger?
I've known Roger a long time. I like him. Sometimes, like with every leader, there are times when you cringe at things he does. But
let me ask you directly. A lot of people call him an empty suit. Is that a fair characterization?
No.
Why not?
Because he's not more. He's much more than an empty suit. I mean, he's
look at the NFL today.
Yeah,
like, do you think it just happened by accident?
Exactly.
But how much of that is Roger? How much is the owners behind Roger? Obviously, he works for them.
He's got to keep these owners unified and on the same page, and that's an impossible job. He's taken the heat for a lot of. I mean, he's been willing to be the pincushion for them. At the expense of, I mean, the owner or the commissioner that I've disliked, tried to keep out of the Hall of Fame and was unsuccessful is Tagliabue because of what Tagliabue did to the players by ignoring concussions and CTE and all the that. I mean, but when to Roger's credit, when he took over, he tried to change that, and the game's different.
John, we only got a couple minutes, 1 minute now, actually. You were interviewed for head of the Players Association when Gene Upshaw passed away back in, 2009?
I guess it was around then, yeah.
How close did you get, and how did you come about to be in the final few?
I don't know how my name came up, but it was through, they hired a search firm, and I guess with my, I'd been a union rep and officer for quite a while, and I was involved in the 82 and 87 strike. And then I'd gone on to do other things, broadcasting and getting the investment advisory business. So I guess the totality of, my work or whatever else brought my to the attention of the search firm. And so I was in the hunt. I had to fill out a form or whatever else. And I remember being interviewed, I guess it was down in Dallas. And there were a number of different people I knew, contemporary players and stuff like that, who were on that roster, including in the review committee. Brian Dawkins was one of them. Anyway, I don't know how far I got after that, but it was an interesting experience.
You would have been a hell of an executive director.
Would have been.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Very sharp guy. Don, any final parting words today?
No, go Phils.
Go Phils. Your daughter works there. Johnny?
Aaronola, bring it home. Yeah. He's got half my name, right?
There we are.
So he's got to do well.
You did a great job, Johnny. We enjoy when you come by. Let's do it again next year, and thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
All good things.
Yes.
Okay.
Damo, good show. We'll be here next week with Von
Nice
Hebron
job.
After the Commander game. Eagles win Sunday.
Nice job, Jolly.
Nice job. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a letdown this week.
All right.
I think they'll win.
Jalen.
Tough game as always.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jalen's going to be dialed in, and so will the people here. Thanks to everybody for coming tonight. Thanks to Brianne O'Neill for producing this fine show. To Stephen Lawler back at the station. For Paul Domowitch and my guest John Spagnola, I'm Paul Jolovitz saying see you next week on the Independence Blue Cross Monday Night Kickoff from the Great American Pub in Conshohocken. Good eats, everybody, and go Phillies, go Eagles.